I've not been in that position because I just feel like I'm just going, go. When stuff happens, I'm deflecting, I keep moving. I'm not stopping and allowing it to impact me to the point where I can't move anymore. A little bit different format this week. Tyler and I are on competing schedules. So Tyler put together this list of questions. And it's intended to help you get to know us, whether you already do, dig in deeper, or if you don't, you get to know us from the very ground level.
This podcast is brought to you by Andersen Windows. We all know how important reputation is in this industry, so it's easy to see why more and more pros are turning to Andersen products and services to build their projects and their legacies. Andersen has earned the trust from pros time and time again for over 120 years. They will work with you to build more efficiently, stay on budget, and earn more referrals by providing high-quality products and support, making your installations easier and confidence stronger. If you've ever visited the ProViews blog on their website, you'll also see how they're working directly with pros to share helpful insight throughout the industry. And, big surprise, you can find us on there too, sharing videos of their manufacturing facilities and testing processes. You really get a sense of Andersen's commitment to quality by seeing it up close, and they have some incredible resources online. For more information, head over to andersenwindows.com/moderncraftsman. This podcast is brought to you by Buildertrend. If your evenings are looking like this, firing off client updates, hunting down selections, answering the same "what's the status" question 10 different ways, it's time to take back your day. Buildertrend gives your clients their own online portal with live updates, photos, schedules, budgets, you name it. You share info once and everyone stays in the loop. No more late night texts, no more "did you get my email?" chaos. Go to buildertrend.com/MC demo and book your demo now. Seriously, if you want your nights back, this is the way. This podcast is brought to you by Harnish. Maintaining a professional appearance and consistent branding on a job site can increase your effectiveness by 23%. Harnish Workwear understands the importance of branded apparel. Their H-Label program offers elevated, customizable work uniforms. Whether it's through embroidery, print, or custom patch applications, they'll collaborate closely with you to ensure your team exudes a cohesive and polished appearance. Their team of skilled in-house printers and designers deliver customized gear fully prepared for use. Head over to harnishworkwear.com to elevate your brand.
So I actually have not read these questions because I think I do better if I just riff. So I'm going to get right into it. Who am I at my core? And how do I think people closest to me describe me? Do you think that matches how your colleagues and your clients see you? And where do those two perceptions align and where do they differ? I think I'm a pretty, I'm a genuine person in terms of who I am to everyone. I don't think the people closest to me have any different view of me. Well, I guess I'm answering that in a negative way. Obviously, on a personal level, like there's so much to that. I think generally speaking, we'll start with general. Generally speaking, I am the same person as I am to my family, as I am to my clients, to my closest friends. I think that's part of just who I am, and ultimately, when it came to running a business and working with clients, is I wanted to be myself. I didn't want it to be an act. Social media is another one. It's like, that's not an act. That's just who I am. I'm not putting on a face or putting on this character of who I am. And I've actually had people come up to me in person and be like, "Man, I thought that was an act, or like the way you were on social media, but you're exactly the same." And in one way, I appreciate that, but it's just not, that's just who I am, right? Like, that's just what I want to be doing. That's who I am from a personality perspective, to a hopefully kindness level, all of the above. So I don't think there's two perceptions of me. I think the people that are closest to me know me on a deeper level in the sense that I, kind of let my guard down more. And I think that that's probably the difference. I think, the people closest to me get to see me with my guard down. And even with my guard down, you know, I think I'm the same person. I just might be a little bit, less professional, maybe a little bit looser with my words, or I don't drink as much as I never drank much, but I don't drink really ever anymore. But that would probably be a good way to describe it. It's like you have a couple beers in you and you loosen up and you're a little bit more loose with the words or loose with what you're talking about. So that's probably the biggest difference. Other than that, no, I think who I am at my core is I'm someone that I struggle with my attention. I want great things in life. I constantly think about what I'm doing in the moment and what I should be doing tomorrow. I struggle. I don't dwell on the past, but I struggle to live in the moment. I struggle to appreciate what I have in this very moment because I'm worried about what I'll have tomorrow, or how I might lose something tomorrow, or how am I ever going to get what I want tomorrow. So that is something I struggle with. And that's in everything. I feel like I'm a pretty driven individual. I am determined to be successful in all definitions of what success is. I am certainly not afraid of hard work. I thoroughly enjoy working really hard. I appreciate when I'm working on something that matters to me. When I'm physically working hard, I actually really enjoy it. I, did a shoot with Fine Home Building a couple weeks ago. They needed someone to fill in for someone that was out. I was like, no problem. I'll come do it. They're like, well, we're going to need you to install some subfloor. Dude, I love that stuff. Like, I'm just up there, tool belt on, saw going, nail gun. I'm just working, and it's hot and it's uncomfortable. I'm sweating, but it's like, this is like that's truthfully my happy place. And I think that when it comes to struggling with attention, I think that's kind of why, because it's, a lot of times I'm sitting in my office and I'm trying to get paperwork done or get a contract out or an estimate done. And I have this list of things of what I could be doing, should be doing, can be doing. And none of it is staring at me and saying, this is what you want to be doing right now. Where I'd rather be on site working through details with my team. And that's just part of where my business is and where I am and what I need to focus on. So I think that's a good way to describe who I am at my core. What early experiences shaped my path. I told the story. I've been a carpenter my whole life. My grandparents used to buy me tools as a little toddler. My grandfather owned a fence company, which my dad later bought. And I worked for him from 11 years old to 22 years old. I was in the shop. I had this mentor, Al, who, was an older guy. I remember him telling me he doesn't really like kids. And he just, I wasn't going to let that. I wasn't going to accept that. And ultimately, him and I became very close. And he taught me everything he knew, from wood fabrication to metal fabrication. And I loved working there and working with the guys and really, learning how to work with my hands and work through challenging things in terms of building and construction, which later got into cars. It was first bikes, then it was four-wheelers, and then I bought my truck, and then it was learning how to build vehicles or work on vehicles, and then it turned into building vehicles. But I think from a childhood, I was just always kind of intertwined with building things. I don't think I've ever told the story, but in middle school, I started a company, I'm using air quotes, called Incline Ramps. And I was building all these skateboard ramps for my friends. Actually, let me back up. I was building skateboard ramps in my yard. that my friends and I would hit with our BMX bikes and our skateboards and things like that. And I was like, I'm making a company out of this. And I created basically a logo and a whole catalog. And I think I did it in MS Paint, if I remember correctly. And all like drew all the ramp types. Like, hey, you can buy a box, you can buy a quarter pipe, you can buy a wedge, so on and so forth. No one ever bought any because we're in middle school. No one had money. I was one of the only people I knew that was working more than a quote unquote like small part-time job just to have some spending money. I was working as much as I could to make money. And speaking of which, I mean, that was something I like at 11 years old. I loved the idea of working and making money. And at that age, you go to the movies with your friends. I remember being overly generous and being like, I'll pay for everyone. I'll buy everyone soda. This was when movies were like $5. Now they're, I think, 40, if I remember correctly, taking my kids. But that's just, who I was. I loved the idea of making money. And at 14, I think I bought a 4-wheeler, and all my friends are, their parents are buying them or they're buying used. And I went into the dealership and I was like, I want a brand new Yamaha Blaster. I want this one and I want to pick it up this week. And they were like, here's the paperwork. And they hand it to my father. And he's like, I'm not paying for it. And I take out, I think it was like $3,600. I take it out of my pocket, all cash. And they're like, what? I was like, yep, been saving up for this thing. And I bought it all cash that day and picked it up the next day. It was great. Did you always know this was the direction I was going, or was there a turning point that made it clear? Truthfully, for me, I mean, my entire life, I remember wanting to build houses, be a carpenter. I knew from an early age that I couldn't design. I actually have a vivid memory of sitting down because someone, I think, challenged me, like, what's your dream house? Like, what do you want your dream house to be? And I remember sitting down and trying to draw it, and I just couldn't. I had no idea where to start. I drew like a big square, and I was like, I guess the bedroom's here, the living room's here. I still don't have that actually sense of space planning and understanding, like watching the architects that we work with nowadays, seeing how they understand the lot and then put together a floor plan that works and flows. It's just really something that I'm really impressed by, because I just couldn't do that. I would be staring at a blank sheet of paper forever. But I'm really good at the micro details and like really thinking through the micro. And who are the people that you admired or looked up to that influenced this path? I always loved This Old House, but truthfully, I was a Home Time kid. I watched Home Time more than any other show. I think it was on TLC or something like that. And I want to say it was a husband and wife. I could be wrong. I know it was a woman and a man that hosted the show. And I'll never forget one of the episodes. They had a blooper at the end, and like they never swore on the show. Obviously it was on TV, but they had one blooper where I think he hit himself, and he just, it was like beep, and it bleeped him out. And I remember in that moment, I was like, this guy is so cool. And I don't know why. It's just like, it's such a core memory of that show. But it was just a show I watched constantly. And, but before that, my parents would buy, we would have VHS tapes of just construction equipment. I remember having one tape, you'd put it in, it was literally just it was basically what Aaron Witt does on social media today. But does it, whoops, someone, basically doing it on a VHS tape, which is funny because now I watch Aaron Witt's channel, Build Witt Media, if you don't know it, but on YouTube with my kids. And we'll just sit there and watch a dump truck get filled 15 times over and over. But yeah, I mean, beyond that, it was Al in my dad's shop. It was my father. It was my mom. It was my parents' friends that were builders. That it was, really anything that, that was tied to construction was an influence to me. And, fast forward, interestingly, I remember starting my business and I was super excited. This is a side story, super excited. And I reached out to a CPA because I was told to do that. And I was on the phone with him, and I remember exactly where I was driving. And I remember being at the red light, and he was like, "Are you sure you want to do this?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" And he's like, "Construction is just a terrible industry to be in." And I ended up hiring the guy, which looking back, I'm like, what, why? He didn't even think it was a good idea for me to go into construction. But fast forward, here we are, right? Similar to my high school guidance counselor, when I mean, my middle school guidance counselor, when I was trying to get into the vocational school, he had said, I was nervous I wasn't going to get accepted. And he's like, "Dude, don't worry. Even the bad kids get into that school." And it sticks with me. Like, I still think about it. I've told this story a bunch of times, and it just, that was so disheartening. Going on into high school, I kind of forgot about it. And, freshman year in that school, you kind of go what they call exploratory, and you can do a bunch of different shops. And then you have to select one that you stick with in sophomore, junior, and senior year. And I remember in freshman year, I was in the carpentry exploratory, and the teacher had asked me to help, and like, here I am, this brown noser, because I'm like, I know what I'm doing. But then in sophomore year, I started making, friends and being like, "Hey, listen, like, I'm in the shop, you're in the shop, like, let's work together. I want to help." But thinking back, to some of those teachers, they were also a huge inspiration for me. They saw that I knew what I was doing, and I could do it, and supported me in a lot of different ways. And, I forget when it was, but I remember them calling my parents and asking if they could put me in the senior group, which I'm not saying for clout by any means. I feel like I'm bragging here, but they asked, "Hey, Nick is not going to learn in the sophomore class. We'd like to put him with the seniors, so he can learn at a higher level for the carpentry." And I don't remember if I was even part of the conversation, to be honest, but I remember my parents saying no, because they didn't want me to basically be bullied because I was the good, the better than everyone else type, which ended up being fine. Like, we ended up having a blended group, sophomores and seniors, and it was actually it was a really good experience. And ultimately, leaving school, a few of those kids ended up working for me at some points. We had done projects together, for NS Builders, and even other projects, just as friends. So, beyond that, when I graduated, I ended up going to college for construction management. And truthfully, my father didn't want me to go to college. He wanted me to go right back to work. My mom kind of pushed me to go to college. And I think freshman year, a good friend of mine, Jeremy, I had met at college, and he left to go start his own landscaping company, which, went on to be very successful. We actually work together still. He does a lot of our general labor work for NS Builders, but he was like, "Dude, I'm making a ton of money. Like, you should get out of school and do it." And I was close, and I was going to bail, and I forget what was the reason I didn't. Yeah, I don't really remember what exactly prevented me from bailing. I think it was the fact that I was already into it, and I had the money, and I knew I was going to be paying for, if not the entirety, most of my school. And I'm glad I did. It gave me the experience I needed, and ultimately was the reason why I got my first job out of school, doing high-rise construction. But, and then ultimately I met my wife because of that. And, my life would be very different, I suppose, if I left school. And frankly, I don't give my wife enough credit. She lived in the city. I lived 40 minutes outside the city, maybe 50 minutes. And if I hadn't met her, and if I wasn't dating her, I don't think I would have been driven to get into the city and the higher end type of work. I think my progress would have been delayed. So a lot of credit goes to Meg. What drives me today? What's the first thing that gets you out of bed in the morning? For me, truthfully, I'm up at 4:45 to 5 a.m., like sometime between that. And I have been religious about going to the gym. I had always worked out growing up. When I had kids, I kind of slowed down. When COVID happened, I slowed way down. And then I've always been in relatively good shape, but, I think it was maybe when we were going to have our fourth kid, or maybe we had three. But I was just like, I need to get back into the gym. It's just something that it's like a love-hate relationship, right? Like there's 4:45, 5 a.m. comes. I just want to lay back in bed. I just want to go back to sleep. But you go and you sweat and you work out and you work hard. And after, it always feels good. Like I never leave the gym after working out and being like, I wish I didn't do that. There's times I wake up and I'm like, I wish I didn't have to go. But that's what really fuels me. And then beyond that, it's just, I'm constantly thinking about how can I be the best version of myself? How can I improve today? What can I do to move the needle? And I think I talked about it in an email recently, which if you guys aren't signed up, moderncraftsman.co, sign up for the newsletter. You'll get some of my behind the scenes emails. I've been lacking, but usually I send something out every Monday morning. But with that being said, I'm always thinking about how to be the best version of myself and what can I do to keep myself accountable. And it's, employing the right people, keep having the right team. Been leveraging AI a lot, where it's, every day I'm basically like, this is what I need to get done this week, this day, and then using it to help me like through that process, like checking in. I will tell you, if I sit here and write a list on a piece of paper of like, these are the things I need to do, I will do them. But if there's no list or there's nothing reminding me of the things I need to get done, my brain is just all over the place. It's like, even this podcast, I'm like, I knew I needed to do this and I kept delaying it. And I was like, I just need to get this done because I have to stop thinking about it so I can focus on the next thing. So it's being the best version of myself. And that starts physically and then mentally. And then obviously as a family, as a father, a husband, business owner. I think I'm an okay friend. I think I mean that because I have a very small circle outside of work and family. I think I shouldn't say that. I think I'm a good friend to a small amount of people, and the second removed or the more professional relationships. I think I do a pretty good job at maintaining that and being a good advocate for what I'm doing and sharing what we're doing. When things are hard, what makes you push through instead of quitting? It's a great question, Tyler. The realization that there's this like careful balance between none of this really matters. We're here for, we don't know how long. At the end of the day, I'm going to die. All my assets are going to go back in the middle of the board and someone else gets to play with them. The money, the land, the things, whatever, right? But while I'm here, how do I be the best version of who I am? And I guess it's the same thing when I think about getting out of bed. It's when things are hard. I mean, sure, it's easier just not to do the thing. That's the reality. And that's unfortunately what I think a lot of people just choose. Like, I'm just not going to do it because it's easier not to do it. Right. And for anything ever, like if there's something that has to be done, it's just easier not to do it. And it's, you're struggling in business. You don't have the cash flow to survive. It's just easier just to give up, just not do it. Don't fix it. Allow it to just absolutely crumble around you. And the repercussions. And I say that it can be detrimental to your health and to your well-being, but it's still easier than figuring out how to fix it. And I just don't genuinely enjoy the easy decision in anything. Like I like to be challenged. I like to do hard things. I feel better when I do hard things. Like going to the gym, it's, lifting up heavy weight. It's like, this sucks and I'm out of breath and I don't really want to do 10 sets. 3 sets of 10. What if I just do 8? It's, and then I think in my head, I'm like, yeah, but if I'm going to do 8, I might as well power out 3. Two more. I say 3 because if I do a set and I only get 8, I will stop, take a breath, and then make up for the 2 I missed. But I will always add an extra in my head. I'm like, you know what? Just because you couldn't do 10 in a row, now you have to do 3. And it's just like, that's how the games I play in my head. It's why I ran the marathon. I don't like running. I don't get a runner's high. I'm not like, I don't click in and just like all of a sudden feel euphoric. I did it because it was something that I knew was hard. And most people say you can't do that. I can't do that. It's like, you could, you just are choosing not to. It's easier not to do it. So I think for me, it's just, when things are hard, I know if I put an unreasonable amount of effort behind it, it should play out the way I want it to play out. And if it doesn't, at least I tried. If all the money and recognition were stripped away, would you still do this work, and why? Yeah, I'd build. I build something. Um, I think if all the money and recognition were stripped away, I think I've gotten to that point where I'm not chasing the recognition as much as I think I was. I like it. I think it's cool. I think it helps the business. But I think for a long time I was chasing that, and almost like a validation, right? Where I'm not so much chasing that anymore. Instead, I just want everyone to. This might sound contradictory, but I just want everyone to know what we're doing because I think it's cool, and I think it's inspiring to other people. So it's not so much that I want to be recognized. I want the work that we collectively as a team do, and I want it to be recognized in a way that's inspiring to other people that want to do cool shit, build cool shit with cool people. That's my mantra. So whether that's homes, whether that's cars, whether that's businesses, whether that's whatever, like that's just what I want to do. What's been your biggest obstacle so far? Was it external, like clients, economy, industry trends, or internal, fear, doubt, lack of knowledge? My biggest obstacle, I don't think it's internal. I think it's both. I think from an internal perspective, I think there's things in my mind that I know I need to do that I actively choose not to because I want to do something else. And right back to like, it's easier not to do it, right? So there's things that I know that if I dedicated the time and effort to, it probably would help me or my business or my family or something, like just, hey, Nick, you got to do this thing. And if I don't do it, it'll be fine. Like, we'll work through it. But if you do it, it's actually going to be much easier and help the situation that you're in, good or bad. But I think I actively avoid some of those things for whatever reason. Externally, I think my biggest obstacle is the fact that I am quote unquote young. My business is younger, and I'm competing against these guys that have been in business for 40 years, and everyone's watching what we're doing and think it's awesome. But it's this barrier of, you're still the young guy, you're still the small business, you're still only this many, you've only done this many projects. So I think externally I'm battling that. And, for me, it's just like this, I just want to be this bull running as fast as I can through shit and get people to understand like who we are, what we can do. And I mean, 45 White Oak is at this point, like, it's public. We're selling that thing for $12.25 million. That's our number. Like, you heard it here first, unless you saw it on social media. Like, that's a big ass number. And there's so much into that project, emotionally, financially, physically, like there's just so much into it. And it's not only going to be a ripple effect for us, but I think for the industry, for the development world, from the architecture world, from the building world, from from the design community, like there's just so much horsepower behind that. And it's a bull charging through a china shop, and it's screwing up everything on its way through. And I just want to get out to the other side so we can look back and be like, that's how we did that. Terrible analogy, but you get the point. How did this test me personally, not just professionally? I think it's just the ability to kind of toggle between, okay, this matters. I have to do these things. I can't stop because this could wreck us professionally, which then trickles into, well, me screwing things up professionally can destroy me personally. And I balance that with the idea that, okay, if I screw up professionally and it destroys me personally, like, and they take everything away from me, I have no house, no assets, nothing. Okay, well, I still have experience, and I would like to think that I'm mentally strong enough to power through that. I want to, like, be very clear. I think I would be strong enough. I've not been in that position because I just feel like I'm just going, go, 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 go. When stuff happens, I'm deflecting. I keep moving. I'm not stopping and allowing it to impact me to the point where I can't move anymore. But if I ever got to that point, I would like to think that I can keep moving forward and not stop. And I think, I texted a buddy Matt the other day in the morning. I was like, hey, how you doing? Surviving or thriving? And he wrote back, he goes, I feel like you sound like Tony Robbins. I'm like, some days I feel like Tony Robbins and other days, not so much. But my point was the fact that, or where that conversation ended up going was, you just got to keep moving. You just got to keep moving forward. Move, 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 move. Jocko says it. I think he was on Chris Williamson's podcast. It's like, how do you deal with fear? And he just responded, go. Just go. And that's how I deal with it. That's how I'm moving. I continue to move forward and continue to bust through these obstacles. I just got to go. Like, yes, this sucks. This hurts. This is painful. This is going to cost me money. Move. And Tyler asks if I look back, would I have handled these things differently? No, I mean, yes, I would have moved faster, because I think earlier in my career, I let a lot of this stuff just linger. There's days I have bad days, but it's rare that I wake up the next day and say, I'm still in a bad mood. I'm still dealing with this. Instead, I wake up, I'm like, all right, deep breath, go to the gym, get to work. You got shit to do. That day, I might, like, there's days where I'm just like, I got to check out. I got to go home. I'm not being productive. This is not working. What's a professional success you're most proud of? Was it a specific moment, business milestone, or something less obvious like building a strong team? And why does it stand out above the rest? And how did it change how you saw yourself or your business? I think there's a lot. I think building a team's been really interesting, because it started out hiring people that are operators in terms of, carpenters, laborers, guys that are in the field doing work. And then it grew into this leadership team. And when we built this leadership team of like, hey, we want to build a successful business, and these are the operations to make that business successful. I don't want to say the bottom dropped out, but the guys that were here for the longest as carpenters and operators in the field, they all left because the business changed. We were a stronger business. We had leadership. We had operations. We had standard operating procedures. Like, there was we were building a business, not just a bunch of guys building stuff. And that was a really challenging time, because you look at it on paper, it's like, holy crap, like 7 people left in a very short amount of time. It's like, understood, but you got to go. You got to move forward. You've made a decision to build the business this way. You either keep moving forward in that direction, or you stop and you go backwards. And it just didn't seem like the right thing to do. But it changed how I saw myself and my business, because I realized that if I want to have a business and a successful business, and one that can do the cool shit with cool people, it is going to require, absolute just like dedication to the goal. And I'm sure anyone that's listening to this, when you sit down and you just absolutely dedicate to something, you make progress very quickly. You can see that progress happening. But when you are trying to do too many things, or trying to understand too many things, or you're not delegating enough, you just feel like you're stuck. You're just running in place. And when we put that into effect in the business, and really build a team that is going to essentially write what the business looks like, in the future, and how we're going to grow the business, that was really eye-opening. What about a personal success? He says, what a moment outside of work that has meant the most to you? Did it change your priorities, or the way you view work-life balance, and how does it connect or not connect to your career path? kids, man. I got 8-year-old, 6 just turned 7. 8-year-old turning 9, 6 just turned 7, and then a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old. So that has just poured absolute chaos in my life. And my home life is chaotic. We sold a beautiful single family home that my wife and I renovated. We bought this 3-family because I think I've talked about this, but we were going to move to South Carolina during 2021. We bought the 3-family as kind of an asset to hold in Boston. We would have a unit that we could come back to, but we would rent out other days while we moved to South Carolina. My kids ended up getting into the school we wanted, and now we stayed. And September 2021, and now we're on September 2025, and we have not renovated this house. It's been brutal on my home life because we were living in this apartment, and I build all these beautiful homes, and I come home and I have 4 little kids in this tight little apartment, and it's just absolute chaos. But when you're able to see through the chaos, and even in the very difficult times as a family, I love it. And, for me, like, I think about like the most difficult times, your kids are screaming, your daughter's crying, won't go to bed, is fighting you. It's 9:30 at night. You just want them to go to sleep. It's like, yeah, but this is going to stop, in 10 minutes, 20, an hour. And then when it stops, you're going to be like, okay, I'm glad that stopped. But eventually it's just going to stop for good. Like, they're going to stop fighting bed. And then, and then they grow up, and then they don't want to hang out. Like, I mean, you can go down that path. But for me, it's changed my mindset around, just being really grateful. And again, my wife has instilled this, but, getting out of the business, and, we have a little cabin up in New Hampshire that we go up to, and it's, stuff like that. You get up there, I'll just leave my phone on the counter, and it's just, I don't even know what we're doing. We might go on the boat. We might play baseball in the backyard. We might go catch chameleons. I mean, dig up worms, go fish, whatever it is. Just like, my shoulders are dropped. I'm relaxed, and it's about life, and it's about my family. So personal success would be the family I have, and in the challenging and the great times, like, just always being grateful for that. My biggest failure, and what did it teach you? Can you share a time when you felt like you were at rock bottom? How did you bounce back? What did you take time to recover? And did that failure ultimately redirect you towards something better? I think I've felt that way a bunch of times, and it's usually financially driven. And I would say that for anyone listening, what's been interesting is that those times where you feel you're financially drained and this is rock bottom and you don't know how you're going to recover, when you actually step back and look at truthfully what you have, you're more wealthy than you might think. And I don't necessarily mean that in like dollar value, just you probably have a lot more than you're giving yourself credit for. And you're just hyper focused on the cash in the business, the profit P&L statement this month or this year or the last 2 years. There's something that you're hyper focused on that everything else doesn't matter. It's like when you have a bad client, all your focus goes to the bad client, but you get 6 other clients that love you. They just want to work with you. And you're focused on the guy that hates you. But in terms of my biggest failure, I don't know if I have one that really sticks out. I know I have lots of failures, and that would and plenty that I could sit here and talk about that would scare the shit out of myself again. But nothing that I look at as a failure anymore. And this sounds very cliche, but it's just like everything has been some sort of moment of test or opportunity to learn from. So even through the most terrible of times, when I wrote that $200,000 check back to the client when he was going to sue me, like that, I could say that was that was a massive failure. The reality of that, I never said it, but the reality of that situation, like looking backwards, we actually didn't even have a formal, the appropriate contract in place. Like it was a handshake deal. Thankfully, we had other paperwork that kind of built upon the whatever, doesn't matter. But that's a massive failure. There's been times I remember remember I employed this team to help with my finances, and there was one person on that team that I just felt was never really prepared for our meetings and just didn't really seem like he was in tune with what was going on. And I went to Florida for with my wife's family, and I am standing on the balcony, and I don't even remember how I found out, but I logged into my bank account and there was $0 in that bank account, the business bank account. And this was years ago, just for clarity's sake. And it was because the person that was in charge of sending out checks, the process was that he could do it and I didn't have final approval on it. Fail, right? And he paid every single payable that was in our queue, every single one. And some of that stuff was brand new and we hadn't even received payment from clients for. And I remember feeling like this is it. Like I'm done. I'm rock bottom. I'd have no money. Like this is, what the fuck am I going to do? And obviously that person got fired. And I don't remember. I definitely didn't fly home for it because I was like, the damage is done. There's nothing I can do. And I remember feeling, I remember feeling like there was nothing I could do. This is just a situation. It's going to play out the way it plays out. Hopefully someone pays us soon so we can be prepared for payroll next week. And I was like, what, you know what? I'm going to call my bank. And I explained the situation. And they're like, well, we can give you a short-term loan, 40 grand. I was like, deal. They're like, whatever the interest rate was, 10%. I don't even remember what it was. I was like, it doesn't really matter what the interest rate is at this point. I need this money to survive. And in that moment, I realized that when, there's very difficult times financially, there's usually resources out there that can help, whether that's borrowing money from an institution, whether that's, borrowing money from a friend, a family, like there's always a way to work through it. It might cost you a lot of money, but there's always a way. But that was one of the times I just felt like I was at rock bottom and didn't have a solution, and ultimately, thankfully, did. But that it was interesting, and I said this a couple of podcasts ago, but that whole idea that suicide is so relevant in our industry, and a lot of it's driven by failure in business, and it's not just our business, like our industry. It's many businesses. When people that fail in business or are in financial trouble, like that becomes this out for them. And you always hear, it's like, hey, if we only knew he was in that trouble, we would have lent him the money. It's like, that's what it takes, is to like, basically it's either give them the money or their life is over. And we never would say that or get to that point. But that is always this reaction of like, we would have just given them the money if we knew it was that bad. And I think I play that out in my head every once in a while. Just in this, not in the sense like I need money, and just want to be very clear about that. I'm not saying that I get into a point where I feel suicidal, because that would be, a very serious issue. What I'm saying is the idea that is how some people react to that situation bothers me. And I think about it where there's always opportunity to work through something, and there's more people willing to help than you probably are even considering. That's what I'm getting at. What are my other current fears and frustrations? What keeps you up at night when you think about the business? What personal insecurities do you wrestle with that bleed into your professional life? And are these fears bigger than they were when you started, or have they just shifted? I sleep. Like I don't wrestle with sleep. Rarely do I have anxiety that keeps me up at night. I can count on one hand probably in the last 5 years that I've been kept up at night, and it's usually just like a hyper specific thing. And frankly, it's usually triggered by me working after hours or being on my phone. Like that's something I need to be better about. I'm just on my phone. Kids go down, I'm like scrolling my phone. catching up on emails, reading something, realizing like, shit, like this is a big issue. I need to figure this out. Usually if I feel that coming on, I'm just like, phone's going away. I gotta go to sleep. Cause like you go to sleep and it's like, when you're sleeping, like nothing matters. Like you're asleep. You're going to wake up tomorrow. Good example of that would be in a car ride, right? Like say you're a passenger in a car ride. It's a 2-hour ride. It's like, man, this is like just a boring ride. Like you don't want to, God, I don't want to do this for 2 hours. You go to sleep, you wake up, you're there. It's like, that's the best part. So, when you're dealing with something, like for me, it's like, I just need to go to sleep, because if I go to sleep, I will calm down and I will wake up tomorrow with a clear mind and start and be actionable about it. But me thinking about it right now is not helpful. Yeah. Personal insecurities though. My insecurities are usually centered around what I can provide for my family, what I can accomplish, things that I want to do for my family, that I promise my family, that I'm a yes guy. It's like, hey, hey, let's go, let's buy that house. Let's go on vacation. Let's go out to dinner. And I'm always someone that's like, I'll just figure it out. And so I think my personal insecurities is letting those people down, because I want them to have a great life. And at the same time, I know that it's probably not a great way to raise kids, where it's just constantly yes, yes, yes. You get into this like spoiled brat mentality, because like we've done some bougie stuff with our kids, and one of my favorite stories, which is like an absolute ridiculous situation, but it took my kids to we've taken them to Europe twice, and when we go, I typically use points, and I can manipulate the points so we end up flying business class to Europe. So one time was to Greece, and the other time was to Italy. And when we flew, we leave late at night, like 11 p.m. So we keep the kids up. They're exhausted. They hop on the plane. They fall asleep. We get there. They wake up. It's great. If you're traveling East Coast, go east. Don't go west. Like going to California is a nightmare with them, because like the timing is all screwed up. But we fly, we get there, this was going to Italy. And then at the end of our trip, there was like, hey, we can hop on a plane for $200 and get over to France for the last part of our trip. And we're like, yeah, let's do that. And my kids are on the airplane, and we hop on. And my son, who was probably 4 or 5 at the time, 5 at the time, maybe, he was like, why don't these seats recline all the way down? And everyone looks at us like, dude, what? Like, why are you? I mean, this is like, that is such a ridiculous comment. And it's like, oh, sorry, sorry, you're not in business class as a 5-year-old with a lay down seat anymore. So it's just it was just a ridiculous example. But, going back to, there's probably some benefit of sharing a little bit of the struggle. Like, hey, we can't do this because of this. But in my mind, it's like, I just want to always be able to do things that we want to do. And I think those fears aren't necessarily bigger now. I think that they have just continued. I guess, they're bigger thing. Like, it's the same fear. It just probably have compounded into bigger things, right? Like, oh, we can't renovate the whole house. We can only do part of it. Where it's like before, when we renovated a house, it was a 600 square foot cape. And then it was a 1,100 square foot, 2.5 floor narrow house in the city. So it's just, they get bigger, but it's the same fears. How have you changed since starting your journey? If you look back 5 or 10 years, what would the old you not believe about who you've become? What habits or mindset have you shed? What nuance have you picked up? And has success made you more confident, or has it added pressure in new ways? Dude, Tyler kills with these questions. If I look back 5 or 10 years, I don't think I'd believe that we were building the projects that we are currently building, like White Oak, because it's just such an absurd number. It's it's so expensive, and it's just, how would I have got there? How would I be able to afford to do this? How would I convince enough people to partner with me and build this project? Like, I think that's the the thing I wouldn't believe, the influence that we would have created through the power of social media and just being the builder that we are. And from a habits and mindset, I think I blamed a lot on, like, I always had an excuse as to why something couldn't be done or didn't get done. And I would just, I would, I was worse with my attention. I was worse, doing the things I needed to do because I could always find a good reason not to. And I think nowadays it's embracing the difficulties and just keep moving. Like the extreme ownership. I will say from a book, I mean, going back to influence, Jocko's extreme ownership book, David Goggins' book, You Can't Hurt Me, or doesn't, or yeah, I think it's Can't Hurt Me. Those two books, from a mindset perspective, in terms of like who I am as an everyday person, are probably the biggest influence, because it just makes me consider who I am and how lucky I am, and the fact that I have these opportunities, and why in the world would I ever waste them. Those are massive influences to who I am as a person. I do think that I am definitely more confident, and I don't know if that's related to success. It probably could be attributed to that, but it's more just the fact that I just know who I am and what I'm doing, and ultimately, like, hey, if you don't like what I'm doing, that's fine. I'm doing this for me. There's, in terms of priority, I get shit for this, but like, it's me first, then my family, then my business. So it's like, if I'm doing this and I want it, great. If my family wants it, great. If my business wants it, great. Everything else, I don't care. If you don't agree with me, if you don't think it's a good idea, like, it doesn't matter. This is my life. I'm going to live it the way I want. And I think that confidence has grown over the last 10 years. And what's the big picture? When all said and done, what impact do you want your work to have on your family, your clients, or even the industry? And do you think about legacy in terms of reputation, financial stability, or something else entirely? And what story do you hope to tell people? What story do you hope people tell about you when you're no longer in the room? From a builder, I want to be known for building shit like that. The coolest, the most uncompromised homes, just building homes that are of a caliber that just you're not in a room of competition. You're just building stuff at an absolute impeccable quality, and doing so like ruthlessly. I think that the hypercar world, the supercar world, I find that industry to be so amazing, and I want to do that with building homes. That's what I want to be known for. For the industry of building, I want to be known for someone that advocated for the trades. I want to be known for someone that supports fair, process, helps people develop a fair process, people make a good living in this industry, and giving people the tools and resources they need, and knock out the bullshit, the poor quality workmanship. Stop building these big homes that are absolute garbage, and start building smaller homes with the same amount of money that are just higher quality and more enduring. And I want to be someone that helps advocate for that, and really shifts the industry's perspective on that. And for my family, I want to be known as someone that was always there to support them, to help live the life that we all want to live, to do the things that we want, to live the way that we want, to go to the places that we want, to live in the home that we want, to be able to do that, but to be a father that encourages my kids to grow up the way that they want, and support their decisions, and encourage them to do hard things and be the best version of themselves. And to my wife, I want to love her, and I want her to love me for eternity. I want us to have an amazing relationship. I want us to be great parents. I want us to enjoy each other's company, even when we don't. I want us to enjoy life the way that we have enjoyed it thus far, and continue to enjoy it together, and find the funny in the difficult times, and continue to live as the family that we've created. He mentioned financial stability. I do want financial stability for me and for my family. I don't often think about the inheritance side of what I do. Like, am I going to leave my kids a bunch of money? That I don't know. I've actually never thought about it, to be totally frank. In my eyes, I think that should just be a byproduct of what happens between now and then. It's not something I'm thinking about or setting up for beyond, like, life insurance policies and things like that. But it's not, how do I make sure that I leave a fortune to my kids? It's, I'd rather us live a great life together than them have the benefit later on. So, wow, that's deep. Thanks, Tyler, for putting these questions together. I always appreciate kind of reading through these type of questions or even being interviewed. Oh my God, I can't believe I just talked for an hour. Hopefully this gives you guys a little insight and intel of who I am. And I know you guys appreciate these kind of conversations because, going back to why we started this podcast, we all feel like we're alone sometimes. And, talking openly about some of this stuff is going to be, is what allows us to keep going. I'll leave it at that. See you guys next week.